So this is Eleanor. Say hi.
Hello.
And we just went to go see The Hate You Give.
Yeah,
And Eleanor and I had just finished the book a few days ago.
like 2 days ago.
Yep. So today Eleanor is going to talk about.
Book versus movie.
All right, let's get it out of the way. What was better, book or movie?
Book. It had more detail. The book had more detail. And the movie cut out a character completely.
Okay, which character did they cut out?
Devante.
And why do you think that cutting him was a good move, a bad move?
It was a bad move.
Why?
Because he was really important to the story. Like, when they were playing basketball, in the book, he basically saves Star and Seven's life.
Because some
King Lords
were messing with them.
Yeah, we're messing with them.
And then at the end of the book, Devante is important because what happens at the... Oops, sorry. My finger got in the screen.
He basically almost dies, basically, and in a fire, but their dad comes out and saves them. And then after all of the, nice stuff's out of the way, are you okay? The parents get mad because they didn't call them. Star's just like, really? I almost died and you're mad because we didn't call you? Her exact words.
Right, but we were talking about Devante. What does Devante do at the absolute end of the book? Let me give you a hint. How does King get arrested in the book?
He gets arrested because he beat up Devante and he was basically just being really rude to people.
No, what does Devante do?
Devante steals from King.
Well, that was why he got in trouble. Devante had stolen money from King, and that's why he was in trouble. But at the end of the book, King goes to jail for arson, but they said it would only be for a few days. So Devante asks...
Oh, yeah, because Devante asks, would it be helpful if you knew where King's stash was? And the police said yeah. And so Devante tells them where King's stash of drugs was. Because he was basically the biggest drug seller in the entire city of Garden Heights.
Okay.
Basically ruled the
And
city.
What happens in the movie? How does King go down?
King goes down because he...
Well, let's talk about that basically the final scene of the book after the arson. Their dad opens the door and Star and Seven escape, and then King and then their mom and Sakani show up.
And so in the movie, King wants to basically beat up Star's dad. And so Sakani in the movie, he picks it up and it was like, don't hurt my daddy. And it was like, and that's basically where Star's like, the hate you give, little F's everybody, because that's basically what's happening right now. And the cops show up and King runs away.
He doesn't run away.
Well, no,
he
doesn't.
Remember? The cops pull their guns on Sakani.
And so Star jumps in front of him and Sakani puts the gun down.
And then King is just arrested.
And then King is just arrested.
What do you think about changing the end of the book like that?
I did not like that. They could have made it more accurate if they had not, one, cut Devante out, and two, stuck with the end of the book, stuck with more of the book.
So one of my complaints, and I don't have many, but one of mine, is the way they ended. It does have voiceover with Star talking, and at the end of the absolute end of the book, she starts listing off like people's names and ends with "I'll never be quiet" or "I'll never stop speaking out" or
And
something.
she never does that at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and I think that I think that especially since they did use voiceover throughout the movie, that was something that I felt
Should have been included.
was missing.
And should have been included.
Yeah.
Although otherwise it is a pretty good movie.
That was my question is, so let's start with, do you think it's a good adaptation?
Me?
What do you think makes it a good adaptation?
So they were pretty accurate, like not very accurate, but I'd say about 50% of it was accurate, maybe lower.
I think I'd be a little more generous, but you are absolutely entitled to your opinion. So what do you what of the changes that they made, what made you upset, if anything?
What mostly made me upset is like we didn't get to see their new house. It's like
that's right.
They didn't move when in the book they actually did. So that is one of my biggest complaints. Cuz like we didn't, and they didn't do the whole basketball scene.
What basketball scene? Oh, the one with Devontae and
with
Seven
Devontae
and Star.
and Seven, where Devontae saves them from King Lords. Like they didn't do that scene. They didn't do a lot of scenes in the book. I mean, I know they were trying to make the movie short, but seriously, come on, they could have been more.
Do you wish it had been adapted by, like, say, Netflix and made into like 10 episodes, like a 10
episode where it was really accurate? Yes.
Okay.
It was really accurate.
So, what do you think about the girl who played Star? Do you think she did a good job?
I think she did do a very good job.
I actually think she should maybe get some big awards for it.
Yeah, she really should.
I mean, I cry easily, but she made me cry.
Yeah, you cry easily.
But you said you didn't cry, but you said there were a couple of moments where you could almost feel the tears welling.
Yeah, like most of like Khalil dying, them almost dying by fire. Basically, dying or almost dying in general. Almost made me cry. Almost. I was also terrified.
Yeah, even though you knew.
I knew that it was gonna happen. I was still terrified.
Let's see. What did you think of the other actors, not just... So, like, what do you think about, like, the girl they picked to play Haley? Do you think that she did a good job of that role?
I think she did a pretty good job.
I
feel like her voice... I feel like that she probably could have done just a bit of a better job, but I think overall she did a pretty good job.
Where do you think she fell down a bit?
I think she mostly fell down the crying because I feel like it did not sound like Haley throughout the other parts of the movie. It really...
Is that because you listened to an audiobook and you kind of were expecting her voice to be similar?
Just a bit.
Okay. What about Maya? In the movie, Maya is...
I think I do have only one complaint for Maya, is that she did not bring up the cat thing.
Well, I mean, the actress was kind of...
I
wasn't sure if the actress did not come across as Asian.
Yeah, and like...
And so, yeah, when
she left the house, she left basically empty-handed. Like, we did not see her leaving the house. Because in the book we hear about her leaving the house and getting food from her mom. But in the movie we don't see that.
Okay. And you were talking about the whole cat story never comes up. What's the cat story?
So the cat story is like... So basically Haley made this comment where it was like... It was before Thanksgiving break, and she made a comment. I can't remember the exact words. I might
It's something
That's
about
something about like a
don't
cat.
you eat cat,
Don't you eat
or
cat.
Asians eat cat.
Yeah, don't you Asians eat cat for basically for,
Thanksgiving.
for Thanksgiving.
So by eliminating the secondary storyline, do you think that that made the movie a little weaker because it didn't have, like Maya's whole comment was, like minority solidarity?
Yeah, they
Because
didn't
she
have
was
the
one of the
minority
only-
team.
Because she was in the book, she's also one of the only other people. Maya's one of the only other people of color in the book.
Yeah, like
I mean, at Williamson, obviously not in the book, but at Williamson.
yeah.
And then what about Chris? What do you think about the way he was portrayed in the movie?
I think he was portrayed well. Although, I guess one thing is he didn't show them in that light where he stops Star from doing something when he knows that, because he knows that she's not in a good place to do it.
Do you remember what that was?
I do, but I don't
You
really
don't
feel
wanna
like
say
it's appropriate
Okay,
if
that's
younger
fine.
viewers are watching.
Okay. And the thing that I was curious about was the decision to have Chris go away with Lyric and what's her name?
Kenya.
And
Because
in
in
the
the
book
book
he stays through the riots
he stays through the riots and stuff. He stays through when Star throws tear gas at the cops after it was thrown at them, and that actually happens in the movie. So
well, so what I thought was an interesting choice was they had him say things like, "I don't see color." I don't remember him saying that in the book.
yeah, he did not say that in the book.
And you really kind of get a sense of Chris seeing a part of the world he had never seen before.
Although one of the
and
funny
becoming
parts
more-
in the book is when they kissed his or in the movie and in the book. They do it in two different places, but it's still the same like words. The funniest part in that is like mac and cheese side dish or full meal, and Chris is like full meal and starts like wah wah wah. It's a side dish, and they're just like it's a meal in a box, and then they're like no, it's the cheesy goodness. It was like with breadcrumbs, and Seven and Star is just like breadcrumbs. They just want to talk about breadcrumbs.
So one of the things for me with Chris is he seemed to develop a better understanding about white privilege and the complex relationship between the black community and police, and the relationship between
and another
white
complaint is
privilege
we
and-
never get to see Chris's house. Like that's
Well,
where
no, you see his room, but you don't see like the full house.
now that
We
that
also
part with no, we never see. That's Khalil's room,
Mm-hmm.
not Chris's room.
No, we see Chris watching TV, and then it cuts to
Oh
Star
yeah,
watching TV.
yeah. We see it. We see it a bit, but we don't see this rich mansion thing where it's just how it's displayed in the book.
Right. So, in the end, would you recommend one over the other? Would you recommend both? Well, so let's talk about the movie just as a movie. Do you think that it was a good movie?
I'd give it a 5 out of 10.
Really? Only a 5 out of 10?
It wasn't very accurate. I like
No, I mean, forget accuracy, forget adaptation. If you look at it just as a movie.
just as a movie. If you hadn't read the book, I'd give it. If you hadn't read the book, I feel like you give it a higher score, like maybe a 7, maybe a 6.
Okay.
6, 7, 8.
So
But
this
as a
is-
person who's read the book, I'd give it a 5 or 6.
You're a pretty harsh grader.
I am very harsh.
Do you think that people should read the book?
I think they should probably read the book before seeing the movie so they get a better understanding of the movie.
Mm-hmm. And
In
do
general.
you think that just in general people should read the book?
Yes.
Why should people read The Hate You Give?
Because if you're reading with a child, it gives them more of a understanding of what's going on in the real world, like what's happening to people of color and just people in general.
Mm-hmm. And this is something that affects you personally too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're a young woman who is not white, you're a young woman of color. So your relationship with the police is going to be different than, say, one of your friends who's white. Do you think that it would be really important for white people who may not understand their privilege to read the book?
Mm-hmm. Because then they can probably get an understanding of how privileged they are with the police.
Mm-hmm.
And how people of color really aren't that privileged.
So some schools read The Hate You Give as part of the high school curriculum. Like you read it in class and then, you do class activities based on the book and it's just part of the curriculum.
I know that. I know kind of sort of the same thing because we did that except with a different book called The Great Horn Spoon.
Okay, so some high schools, like you did The Great Horn Spoon, they do The Hate You Give. Do you think that's a good idea? Like,
Because
I know that you're pretty young,
who are going into college will need to know what the real world is like because they're going off to college. They won't see their parents that much. They need a better understanding of what's going on in the real world before after college they jump into it.
Mm-hmm. And the alternative is some high schools have banned the book. Do you know what it means when a school bans a book?
And you can't read that book basically during class.
Well, it's...
Or can't read
No, I mean, if you bring it from home,
school.
you can read it, but it means you cannot teach it. They will not put it in the libraries.
It's like...
It's forbidden. What do you think? I mean, what do you think about banning books in general?
I don't think it's a good idea. Sure, if it's inappropriate.
Well, some people think The Hate You Give is inappropriate.
Sure, if it's like more inappropriate than The Hate You Give, because in The Hate You Give, there's only the snippet. There's only a tiny bit of inappropriate things. But you...
Well, so some people think that it's inappropriate for any child to read about police brutality or to read about...
That is not... I don't think that's fair because people need to know what is going on. Like, children need to know what the real world is like.
Mm-hmm. So... What?
It can be cruel.
It can be. You're right. All right. So let's end on a little bit better of a note. So what was your favorite thing that happened in the book?
Probably the Minority Alliance.
Does that speak to you?
For some reason, I like Minority Alliances.
And what about the movie? What was your favorite moment?
The dress was beautiful.
When her mom gives her the dress?
Yeah, that is beautiful.
But that's also the moment where her mom talks about her relationship with Haley and how it's not that she doesn't like Haley, it's that she doesn't like who Star is around Haley, and Star has to decide whether or not it's worth keeping the friendship with Haley. And does that also speak to you?
Not really.
You just liked her getting the dress?
I just like the dress.
Okay. All right. Do you have any other final thoughts?
No.